Hey everybody, it's the Dude here to bring you another video. To all of you who have been waiting so patiently for this review, thank you for your support. FYI, my finals went great. Finally, we are at the mid-season finale. Rather than give you some spiel about what it entails, let's just get right into it. Here is my review and analysis of Season 7, Episode 8 of The Walking Dead, Heart Still Beating. The title, Heart Still Beating, is in reference to something Aaron says to Rick twice in this episode. He's trying to help qualify to Rick why it's okay to get supplies for Negan, that at least they're still alive. We open on Maggie. The trailers and sneak peeks for this episode didn't actually include Maggie, so I really didn't know whether we were going to get her this episode. I think to open with her is a strong move. She goes up to one of the guard posts at the hilltop. When she gets to the top, she looks out. This is similar to the way she was looking out for Glenn in the middle of last season when he was presumed dead. In this case, it's a little unclear as to who she's actually waiting for. I wasn't sure if she got any inclination from Rick and the group that they were ever meaning to come back to the hilltop, but maybe. Just then, Gregory shows up, holding an apple. He's like, Maggie, I know people are saying things, nice things, about you and Sasha. She's so cool. They are. He's like, they are. Oh, I like to count those as a double line. You know, when a character says a line once and then says it again with different inflection for more emphasis. It happens all the time in the show. Usually I count it when one character says a line twice, but in this case Maggie said you are the first time, and then Gregory said it again for more emphasis, so double line. About how they thinking you saved the place? Don't let it go to your head. Well, don't let it bother you. It seems like it bothers you. You gonna eat that? And he's like, yes. Then Eduardo, one of the other guards, says to Gregory, dude, you know she's pregnant. And Maggie gives him a look like, yeah, you gonna make a fool of yourself in front of your people? Gregory tries to throw the apple over the wall, but Maggie catches it anyway and takes a big old bite out of it. Damn, Maggie, you awesome. This is the preferred way to show Maggie is slowly becoming the leader of the hilltop, rather than in episode 5 when Jesus and Sasha were sharing looks like, Maggie's the leader now. We cut to Negan in Rick's bathroom, shaving. He says, against the grain, kid. Always against the grain. Oh, that's a double line. When I knew that Negan was going to shave, I wondered if he was going to maybe make someone else shave him, like Olivia or Carl. But I think it's even better that he's taking this opportunity to teach Carl how to shave. It's such a fatherly thing to do. Interesting that when Rick shaved when he first got to Alexandria, he didn't do it in front of Carl. He didn't take the opportunity to be a father to him. He was shaving for himself. Everything Negan does here in Alexandria is to teach Carl and affect him. Next, back on Easy Street, we find Daryl contemplating what to do with this note and key. But of course he takes his opportunity and heads out into the sanctuary. Back in Rick's house, Negan is making some pasta. Then we see Olivia outside of Rick's house, crying. Tara comes up to her with some powdered lemonade for Negan. I had some in my kitchen. Denise liked it. And Olivia looks at her. Thank you. Tara tells Olivia to go home, that she can take over, but Olivia says no, that Rick asked her to take care of Judith and that's what she's gonna do. I think this is interesting for both characters. This shows that Olivia doesn't have a lot of responsibility, but when she does, she takes charge, and that Tara is one to put others ahead of herself. So I wonder what the rest of the episode would have been like if Tara had taken Olivia's spot. You should go. We're about to sit. It seems like in Negan's brief time in Rick's home, he's already established a status quo that once it's dinner time, everybody needs to be at the table, and we don't want any other guests. This is family time. He is the new head of this household, and he's waiting for his spouse, Rick, to get home. Back out in the world with Rick and Aaron. They are looking out at the zombie lake with the boathouse, supposedly full of supplies. He says, this boat with the bullet holes it'll take on water quick will probably make it to the canoe. Probably. That's what you call your classic everyday double line. If you want to stay back. And Aaron gets all offended. I'm gonna pretend you didn't just say that. He walks over to the big sign that we saw last episode and kicks 2 boards loose to use as paddles. And the two head out into the lake. Next we see Eugene coming back into Alexandria. You can see how nervous he is. Behind him at the gate we see Creepy Davy from episode 4. Then we see Spencer unloading all of the supplies he just got for the Saviors. That's when Eugene turns around. The Savior that gave Negan Deanna's camcorder in episode 4 says to Spencer, you look like shit. Means you fought for this. Did your job. You get it and I like that. Negan likes that. I feel like I have to count that as a double line. He puts his hand out to shake Spencer's hand, and Spencer does it. The female savior next to Spencer turns to him and says, "You play your cards right, maybe I'll show you where we live. Maybe I'll buy you a sandwich." And Spencer considers it. "Just tell me when." I honestly think Spencer's doing the right thing here. He's playing along with them, getting them to trust him, getting them to like him. It's not actually the worst strategy. This is the savior chick that we saw in episode 3. She was playing a drinking game at the very beginning of the episode with Dwight. I got kind of the feeling that her and Dwight were sleeping with each other, but obviously none of the people at the sanctuary form connections really readily, so it makes sense that she's going for Spencer here. She turns to see Eugene staring at them and says, "You like watching Haircut?" And he's nervous and without thinking just says, "Yes." I love this. This is a callback to way back in season 5 in the episode Self-Help, where Tara catches Eugene watching Rosita and Abraham have sex. And Eugene's just being honest. "Yes, I like to watch. She says, "You mean to get the hell out of here. Now." And begrudgingly, Eugene leaves. Next we see Carol for the first time since episode 2. I expected to kind of see her in bed with Ezekiel or something, but Ezekiel's not even in the episode, so it's inconclusive whether Carol has been won over by Ezekiel or not. She hears something on her front porch, and she goes to find that it was a bag of supplies left by Morgan. She opens the door and calls out to him. Kind of uncomfortably, he explains to her that it's just a bag of fruit, and he was just trying to help out. She says, "I'm good." Really, showing him the fruit that Ezekiel has brought for her. So maybe she has been a little won over by him. "I'm good." Obviously a double line. Apparently some people don't believe me when I say I want to be left alone. Carol is for sure an independent woman who doesn't need anybody, and she doesn't even need the fruit Ezekiel gets her, let alone the fruit that Morgan does. "I was trying to leave you alone. You invited me in." "Why?" She says, "How are you?" He says, "Good." "Good. Now you can go." Sometimes Melissa McBride, who plays Carol, she's just a little too mean. That sounded like she was setting Morgan up to deliver a punchline. Obviously, this is meant to make us understand that Carol, while she doesn't want to spend any time with Morgan, she still wants to know if he's doing okay. When Morgan goes to the door, he finds Richard standing there with some supplies. Richard is surprised to see Morgan there, which I think is a little unbelievable. As we saw in episode 2, there is only one road leading from Carol's new house back to where the kingdom is. So I feel like if Richard shows up only a minute after Morgan does, that he must have left a minute after Morgan. If they're heading on the same road, it really doesn't make sense that Richard would be surprised to see him here. Richard says he wants to talk to both of them actually about something important, and Morgan and Carol share a look. Back out in the world in the boat, we're treated to a pretty cool zombie scene. I like that they used the planks to kill the zombies. This canoe jump scare didn't work on me because they spoiled it in the trailer by showing this zombie. And then all of a sudden, Aaron gets pulled into the water, and Rick doesn't do anything. He just shouts for him, and it's this long, drawn-out, suspenseful moment that ultimately ends up Aaron's fine. I'm not quite sure what's missing from this scene to make it resonate more. I didn't think Aaron was gonna die, and when he popped his head up, it was just a little underwhelming. I think it would have been cool if Rick dove in and saved him. I mean, this whole season is about Rick wanting to keep everyone alive, and for him to just wait for Aaron to pop up, I just thought it wasn't really appropriate for what Rick's going through right now. Aaron pops up, "I'm okay. I'm okay." It's just double line. Rick paddles the canoe over to the boathouse, and both him and Aaron collapse on the deck exhausted. On the deck, we see a dead zombie, possibly the guy who lived there, and a bunch of bullet casings, implying that he used all of his ammo. Back on Easy Street, Daryl is walking through the sanctuary hallways. Before he can turn a corner, someone we can't see drops something, startling Daryl into backing up. He heads into another room, which looks like somebody's living quarters. Daryl starts changing his clothes when he spots some carvings on a table, cluing us into the fact that this is Dwight's room. Back on the boathouse, Aaron and Rick are looking through the guy's supplies. Aaron opens something, and inside there's a note that says, "Congrats on winning, but you still lose." Rick says, "Looks like the only thing you ran out of was ammo." Which is super convenient, that being the only thing that Rick's group needs. Though I'm sure those grenades they found aren't out of ammo. The two start to pack up the canoe to get back to shore. Back in Dwight's room at the sanctuary, Daryl is sitting, dressed in new clothes, eating some peanut butter. Outside of the room, he hears the two people who have been cleaning up the mess that was just made in the hallway finish and leave. He flips the table over with all of Dwight's carvings and heads out. Back with Aaron and Rick, they have managed to move the houseboat over to shore where they are loading the supplies into their truck. Rick sort of apologizes for saying that Aaron didn't have to help him, saying that what he really meant was that he would understand if he didn't want to help because a lot of people don't agree that they should be giving their stuff to Negan. But Aaron says, I was there. What we're doing is going to keep people living. It doesn't matter what happens to us. Michonne doesn't think this is living. It's hard. It's giving up everything right up until your own life. But either your heart's beating or it isn't. Your loved ones' hearts are beating or they aren't. So this has given Rick a little more assurance that what he's doing is the right thing. He is still no less conflicted about the situation with Michonne. When they pack up to leave, far off on the other side of the lake, we see a foot stamp into the mud. Ooh. Who is this mysterious boot person? They are obviously going to follow Rick and Aaron back to Alexandria. So, who are they? I'll be talking about this more at the end of the video, but for right now, with all the information we have from this scene, it could be someone else that was living on this houseboat. Notice on the roof of the boat there are 2 chairs, implying that there could have been 2 people living there, keeping watch at any one time. Possibly that person was out getting supplies while the other person was there. Though, it seems like the guy, who we're led to believe was the only person living on that houseboat, died quite a while ago. Most likely it's someone that we already know, but I'll get back to that later. Next, we are with Michonne and the redheaded savior. Michonne asks, so how long you been with Negan? And the woman doesn't answer. Why were you out there alone? When she still doesn't answer, Michonne points the gun closer to her like an idiot. Remember last episode? And says, tell me. Again, she doesn't say anything. Michonne calms a little bit and says, you think talking won't change this for you, but you don't know me. Now this sounds like a really serious, I'm a badass line, but really what she's saying is that you don't have to die. You don't have to not talk. You can sympathize with me because I'm a sympathetic person. Michonne sits back and stops pointing the gun at her and says, I'm not going to kill him today. I'm going to find a way that we win. I'm going to change how this ends for me. That's why I'm out here alone. I don't know. You know, I love Michonne, but lines like these are things that real people don't say out loud. Obviously, for the audience, we need to know her motivation, that she's doing all this and she's not going to kill Negan. She's just going to do what everyone else is doing and think. Which is fine, but they shouldn't have been setting up Michonne to do something more if she was never going to really do anything. Back at the hilltop, Maggie is in her trailer with Enid when Sasha shows up. Maggie immediately turns to her, is that an apple pie? Sasha tells him that somebody baked it for Maggie because of what she did to save the hilltop in episode 5. Also that his little girl says that she should run for president of Hilltop. Boo. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about, pushing the whole Maggie is a leader thing on us too much. I don't need other people telling me that she should be the president. I think it's sloppy, forceful writing, and it would all just work better if we as an audience slowly understood that she earned that position when she does something to earn that position. Don't just tell us, show us. Sasha sits down on the couch and is looking at 2 knives. Maggie asks, did Jesus give you those? And she nods. Can't wait for some cool knife kills from Sasha when she's not using her sniper rifle. Maggie says she wanted to talk to Jesus before he headed out on a supply run, and Sasha lies and says he headed out this morning. When Maggie leaves, Enid confronts Sasha about lying to Maggie. Sasha says it's for her own good, because I need to do something, and she'll want to help me. You want to kill Negan. Well, what if you had help? If we had help? That's one of those consecutive 2 characters saying it, double lines. I wouldn't be afraid to tell her because she would know that she didn't have to do it. It isn't just you. No, Enid. You don't say anything about this. We have to keep her safe. You have to keep her safe. You guys tell me. Double line? And Enid's like, it isn't just you. Now that is a clear double line. It sounds like she's prepared to risk her own life for Maggie, while she feels like it's just her up against it. I think her attitude definitely will change when the whole group gets back together. And I don't think Sasha's going to do something super risky, because her priority should be keeping herself alive to keep Maggie alive. Then we go back to Carol's house, where Richard is talking to Morgan and Carol about the kingdom and Ezekiel, and about how everything Ezekiel has built is under threat by the Saviors. The Saviors. Richard is trying to convince Morgan and Carol to both talk to Ezekiel and get him to start a war against the Saviors. Back at Alexandria, Rosita is staring at her bullet. We hear Gabriel's voice. Is that for you or Negan? Is he asking if she's going to kill herself, or if by killing Negan that will be killing herself? It's for him. They'll kill you as long as he goes first. Why do you have to die? Because he has to. Gabriel sits down next to her and she says, if Abraham was alive, we could fight. Glenn was alive, Maggie's kid would have a father. Michonne, Carl can fight, they have Rick. Aaron has Eric. Eugene knows things. So yes, that's all that Eugene's got. Gabriel asks, what about Sasha? When Rosita doesn't say anything, Gabriel says to her, it shouldn't have been you. We'll win, but we need to wait for the right moment. Together. And you're a part of that together. We need you. And Gabriel leaves her. I think it's really interesting that Gabriel picks up on the idea that Rosita feels like it should have been her, that it's worse that she's alive and that Glenn and Abraham are dead. I think it's a really important aspect of Rosita's character that she has this kind of survivor's guilt, and it makes her character all the more strong. I see the struggle on her face. I think as an actress and a character, Rosita has really transformed in this last season, and it's all due to Abraham's death. Originally this season, I wasn't so sure that Abraham's death was really going to affect enough of the story to matter, but I think Rosita is the effect that Abraham has on this show. And because of that, I don't think Rosita will die this season. She is only getting better, and I do not think it is just to kill her. Back on Easy Street, Daryl is making his way down one of the hallways. He peeks into a room where a number of saviors are playing poker. One of them is serving the rest a platter of food. It kind of looks like meat. I wonder if it's the pigs from the kingdom. Daryl makes his way down a hallway and finds a pipe to use as a weapon and continues on. Back in Carol's house, Richard is continuing to talk to her. I imagine violence and fighting is something that you haven't really been a part of. Huh? She says, you're wrong. Morgan's like, you're very wrong. Double on. She's probably the most capable fighter in this room. True dat. And Richard's like, well then it's time to fight. But both Carol and Morgan turn him down. She says that she didn't want any of this. She doesn't want him or Ezekiel or Morgan. She doesn't want to be bothered. And Morgan says that even though he killed to save Carol's life, that he doesn't want to do it again. Richard gets really mad and says that the blood is going to be on your hands and leaves. So this is what this whole half season has been building to, for them to stick to their guns and still not fight. I can respect that, but I also feel like eventually they're both going to fight. In The Talking Dead for this episode, Robert Kirkman, the writer of the comics, was asked about Morgan and Carol and if they're going to fight or not, and he said, well, they're fighters, they're probably going to fight, and said, ooh, did I say too much? And yes, he did. If these two are going to fight, what is going to bring them into this battle? For Carol, I can imagine it being finding out that Glenn died. She has literally zero connection to Abraham, but she loves Maggie, and she's grown up with Maggie, and to know that that baby doesn't have a father, I'm sure would bring Carol into the fold. I would be especially excited if the way she hears this news is from Daryl. The first time she sees him again, from just the look on his face, she would know that someone died, and he would say Glenn. She would ask about Maggie, and he would say, we have to fight. She's ready to fight. We're all gonna fight. And Carol would do it, and I think the audience would accept that, especially if it comes with a Daryl and Carol reunion. Now, for Morgan, I think the thing that'll get him in the game is probably the death of Benjamin. He was good in episode 2, and they were building a relationship between him and Morgan. I hope to see more of that, and I hope that he doesn't just die and Morgan gets angry and starts killing people. But that looks like the direction we're going. When Richard leaves, Morgan heads out as well, and Carol says, I don't want anyone else coming around or even knowing where I am. If you somehow see anyone we know, tell them I'm gone. Do that for me, please. To me, this tells me that Morgan will be the first of these two characters to run into some of our old characters. He'll probably be at the kingdom when the rest of the group gets there. It's possible that Carol's name gets dropped and Ezekiel says, ah yes, Carol, she is over there. But if that doesn't happen, I'm very interested to see if Morgan will keep this promise. Back at Alexandria, Spencer is coming into his home. It seems like he hasn't been there since Rick trashed it looking for the guns, but I know he has. We get a cool transition showing that Spencer has tidied up the house, and he's tidied it himself up. And he goes up to the mirror and is practicing. Hi. 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 He's satisfied with the third one and is like, ooh. We cut to the middle of the woods where Richard is sneaking to an RV that is covered in vines. Inside, rather than being a secret stash of weapons in order to start a war like I thought it could have been, it's just his little secret stash of food and supplies. Once inside, he breaks a bottle and starts crying, defeated. This is the last scene we get with Richard, and it's the last scene we get with any of the Kingdom people this episode. And I was once again a little underwhelmed. We've left these characters defeated, having not gained any traction with the war effort. I guess it's Rick's group that gives them that traction, but I'm not sure why we needed any of these scenes to give us no real advancement in the story. Back at the sanctuary, we see a door propped open. It opens and the card falls, revealing Daryl. He is entering the courtyard with the bikes, where he was caught trying to escape last time. He runs for one of the bikes when Fat Joey shows up, eating a sandwich. Immediately when he sees it's Daryl, he drops the whole Negan act as like, "Well man, buddy, you can walk out that gate right there, I won't say anything. I'm just trying to get by. Just like you." But it doesn't win Daryl over. Daryl hits him in the head with the pipe and starts beating him. Just then Jesus shows up to see it all. Some people might have a problem with this. I heard they cut a really violent shot of the head getting bashed in. I kind of would have preferred to see it. It would have been a little bit of poetic justice to see someone die just like Glenn and Abraham died at the beginning of the season, but actually at Daryl's hand. This also shows how far the Saviors have pushed Daryl. This isn't something that I feel like he would have done before Glenn and Abraham died, but now he is ruthless. Daryl looks down and sees Rick's revolver in Joey's pocket. He picks it up and says, "It's not about just getting by now. It's about having it all." At first I was like, well, you know, Fat Joey does have a point. He was just trying to get by. But I think there's something important to point out. When Fat Joey showed up in this courtyard, he had a sandwich in his hand. And one thing that we've learned from the Saviors is that having a sandwich means that you have it better than everybody else. Dwight made a sandwich, the girl with the tattooed offered Spencer a sandwich, and now Joey has one. Hell, he wasn't at the lineup where Rick's gun got taken originally, but back at the Sanctuary, he got first dibs on the best fucking handgun out of the bunch. Daryl sees this and feels this, and more than anything, he's just letting out his aggression and his frustration. And for those of you who feel bad for Fat Joey and think that Daryl was out of line, I think that's exactly what they're trying to make us feel. It's powerful. It shows that his character is changing. On a different note, Jesus is here. The credit card being placed in the door of this courtyard, letting Daryl into it, and Jesus being here to intercept him tells me that Jesus is the one to leave him the note. Originally, I kind of thought it was going to be Sherry or even Dwight, but it's fine that it was just Jesus. Though at the heart of this story, I have a major issue. Daryl is escaping, and that is not where I thought his story was going to go. And usually when the show tricks me and does something I don't expect, that's a good thing. But in this case, I didn't want him to escape. If you've been watching all my reviews, you might have caught on that I would have loved for him to pretend to turn to Negan's side. I think it would have been a more interesting struggle to see Daryl go through, and now that he's out, I feel like this story he's been going through this half season just doesn't mean anything. Sure, he's bitter and ready to fight, but I think it would have been better if he had kept that all pent up until the end of the season. If he would switch to Negan's side just to pretend, to play double agent, and in the final moments when Negan asks him to do something crazy for him, Daryl refuses and flips sides. Of course, this adds a totally new aspect to the story. When Negan gets back from Alexandria, he will find Daryl gone and Fat Joey dead. Somebody in the Sanctuary is going to get punished for that, and more than that, Negan is going to go on a full search of every community for Daryl. He's probably going to go back to Alexandria to check. He'll send Simon to the hilltop, and maybe he'll send some people to the kingdom looking for Daryl, which could spark an interest with Carol and Morgan. So there's a lot of interesting things that are coming out of Daryl escaping, but at the same time, I kind of wanted more. Back at Alexandria, Spencer is trying to get into Rick's house to talk to Negan, but Arat has shut him down. Behind, Negan says, "Don't be an asshole, Arat. Let the man pass." Negan sees the alcohol. "Oh, crap. Is that for me?" "We haven't officially met. I'm Spencer Monroe. Hi." Oh, it's so funny. He practiced it in front of the mirror and he thought he had it right, but that high sucked. Then we cut back to Michonne in the car with the female savior. The woman stops the car and says, "That's Negan." Michonne turns and looks. Further down the road, there seems to be a bunch of maybe vehicles surrounded by a bunch of people. There's no telling whether these people are alive or zombies. This is also clearly not the Sanctuary, or even an outpost. The redheaded woman says, "Whatever you're trying to do, you can't. Burn this car, make it disappear. There's a silencer in the glove compartment." Michonne looks at her seriously. Then they cut to a wide shot of the car, and we see Michonne shoot her in the head. What? I'm sure I'm not the only one who expected a little more to come out of the Michonne story. It ends with her learning that the Saviors have a lot of people, which is something that everyone in the RV in the season finale had already learned. And then even what she said earlier in this episode to the redheaded woman about how her fate's not sealed, she doesn't have to die. Michonne kills her. For the rest of the episode, Michonne just heads back. So once again, one of these stories this episode wasn't satisfying. Back in Alexandria, Rick and Aaron have just pulled up to find Negan and his men already there. When Rick goes through the gate, Creepy Davy stops him. "Hey, where you going? You see, we've been waiting for hours. Just to see what you're gonna bring us, huh? Why don't we have a look first?" Back with Negan and Spencer, they're drinking and chilling on Rick's front porch. Negan says, "That settles it. I'm getting myself a vacation home here." Negan takes a drink and says, that is good. Only thing missing is a pool table. That house across the street has one in the garage. Oh, Spencer, you may just be my new best friend. Such a nice day, though. Too nice to be cooped up in some garage, don't you think? Oh, I got a better idea. Back at the front gate, the Saviors are unloading Rick's supplies when they find the note that the man on the houseboat left them that says, "Congrats on winning, but you still lose." Why they packed this with everything they wanted to take, I'll never know. But this causes Creepy Davy to attack Aaron, pushing him up against the van. At this moment, I was like, fuck, no, this is conflict that could be avoided by Aaron saying very quickly, "No, those supplies we found used to belong to a person who left that note for anyone who found them, and they just managed to get into the supplies. Please don't kill me. We brought you these supplies. It's all cool." But no. Rick tries to intervene, but the other Savior says, "Run along to Negan, Rick." And both him and Creepy Davy start beating the shit out of Aaron. Then we cut to the Alexandria town square where Negan has had the pool table brought out. This is a great enhancement from the comics. In the comics, Negan does request the pool table and Spencer says, "Oh, I have one in my house." But they don't actually bring it out. I think this is the perfect thing when adapting a graphic novel into a TV show. This is just a purely cinematic moment. Them playing pool building to, well, you know. Negan's like, "See, this is something I could never do with Rick. He would just be standing there scowling. That's actually what I came to see you about." Behind Spencer, we see that all of the Alexandrians have gathered to watch Negan and Spencer play pool. Oh shit, it's gonna happen in front of everybody. People like Rosita and Scott and Eric. Random old man who somehow survived the wolves attack and the zombies that followed. Hey, we get a look at Tobin! Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about Tobin. When are we gonna get that Tobin episode I've been waiting for? Tara got one. We should get something that totally delves into Tobin's... Sorry, I can't. Spencer says, "I know what you're trying to do here, what you're trying to build. It makes sense, but you should know that Rick Grimes has a history of not working well with others." Is that so? Rick wasn't the original leader here. My mom was. She was doing a really good job of it, and she died. Not long after Rick showed up. Same with my brother, same with my dad. So everything was peachy here for what? Years? And then Rick shows up and suddenly you're an orphan. That is the saddest story I've ever heard. Good thing for you, he's not in charge anymore. It doesn't matter. His ego's out of control. He'll try to take over. That's what he did with my mom. That's what he'll do again. What exactly are you proposing be done about that? I am my mother's son. I can be the leader she was. That's what this place needs. That's what you need. So I should put you in charge. That's what you're saying? We'd be much better off. There's a very interesting line change from the comic here. At this point, Negan says, "So what? I should kill Rick and put you in charge?" Where in the show, he just says, "I should put you in charge." I think there's an important difference because either way, Spencer agrees and says we would be much better off. But I think in the comics, that says to Negan that Spencer is okay with killing Rick. But that's not what Spencer agrees to in the show. So because of that line change, I'm not entirely certain that Spencer deserves what he's about to get. Back at the gate, the Saviors are done beating up Aaron and Rick is helping him up. With blood in his mouth, Aaron says, "My heart's still beating, right?" Double line. This is Aaron telling Rick that he's okay with being beat up, because they're still alive, and what they did today, finding supplies for Negan, could keep people alive in the future. This is the optimistic outlook that Rick needs right now. Unfortunately, it all goes out the window when, back at the pool table, I'm thinking, Spencer. I'm thinking how Rick threatened to kill me, how he clearly hates my guts. But he is out there right now, gathering shit for me. He is swallowing his hate and getting shit done. That takes guts. And then there's you, the guy who waited for Rick to be gone so he could sneak over to talk to me so I could do his dirty work, so he could take Rick's place. Briefly, Spencer is also the guy who just came back with a bunch of supplies too. Did that message not get to Negan? In the comics, Spencer is totally the bitch who wasn't getting supplies and was just trying to go behind Rick's back. But here, Spencer is doing what Negan wants. Once again, Negan's saying the exact same things from the comic, but they no longer apply to the show because of the changes the show has made. And so they shouldn't have had Spencer go get supplies if they're going to keep the line the same. And more than anything, they had something else to blame Spencer on. He stole the guns. If some chance Olivia, in her time with Negan, told him that Spencer had stolen the guns, this would have been the perfect time for him to, rather than saying, Rick's out there going to get supplies, Rick's out there bringing me guns when you stole the guns. I think it was a missed chance for a better moment, to make this moment even stronger than it was in the comics, when, unfortunately, I think it's just a little bit weaker. Negan keeps talking, so I gotta ask, if you want to take over, why not just kill Rick yourself? And just take over? What, I don't, you know what I'm thinking? 'Cause I have a guess. He leans in. It's because you got no guts. Cool. And Negan drives his knife into Spencer's gut. Just like they've been doing this whole season, when something horrific happens, they first cut to all the other characters before showing us the carnage. Negan rips the knife out and Spencer's guts flop to the floor. He falls to his knees and Negan's like, how embarrassing. There they are. They were inside you the whole time. You did have guts. I've never been so wrong in my whole life. This is the moment I've been waiting for quite some time. Pretty much just the first time I saw Spencer in the show. When I knew it was gonna happen, I was really excited to tell you guys a story. So on Talking Dead during, I believe, season 6, the actress who played Deanna was on, and so was Robert Kirkman. And Chris Hardwick, as usual, was asking the actress all the questions, and she was talking fondly of her character's son in the show, Spencer, and how he's really a strong character, and how she's proud of Spencer. Then, Chris Hardwick turns to Kirkman and says, what do you think of Spencer? And Kirkman says, well, he's got guts. I, being a huge nerd, knew exactly what he was referencing to, and to me it seemed like nobody, specifically the Deanna actress, had any idea, because Deanna starts talking like, yeah, he does, you're right, I'm gonna keep talking about how great he is, and Kirkman's just sitting there like, yeah, he's gonna die someday. And it made me feel like a nerd, it made me get excited, and it made me love Robert Kirkman even more. We see Rosita, she looks furious, like the hate is building within her. Negan's got a shit-eating grin on his face, and then he picks up Lucille. Someone, get up here and clean this mess up. Nobody moves. Anyone want to finish the game? Come on. Anybody? Anybody? Double line. Come on. I was winning. Just then, Rosita whips her gun out and fires. What? Oh my god, Rosita did it! On the other side of Alexandria, Rick is helping Aaron walk when they hear the gunshot. It cuts back to Negan, and Rosita's bullet hit Lucille. Fuck! In the comics around this time, an entirely different set of events occur. Rather than someone shooting Negan as soon as he kills Spencer, Rick intervenes and allows Negan to leave. But when he does, he decides that Negan's not leaving here alive. He rallies the troops, and they all confront Negan in front of Alexandria. Rick gets a gun on Negan and shoots, but he doesn't actually shoot. The gun gets shot out of his hand by one of the Saviors. In the books, this was a big twist because up until that point, the Saviors hadn't been seen using guns. They didn't take the guns from Rick's group, and it wasn't really an issue that was brought up. But obviously, they wrote out the aspect of the Saviors not carrying guns. So for a while now, I've been wondering, ooh, what's the big twist gonna be? I think it was really interesting to give Rosita this story, rewrite the whole bit, kind of keep it together in front of Spencer's dead body. In this scene in the books, Carl tries to shoot Negan again and hits Lucille, causing a big chunk of it to splinter off. In the show, the bat completely stops the bullet. I don't know if that's a statement that the bullet was homemade and therefore not as strong, or if they just didn't want to break a big chunk out of the bat. I'm not really sure. One thing having to do with the physics of the matter, the bat was in front of him. I don't care if the bullet was cheap and homemade or not. Lucille would have hit him in the head. Negan's furious. Shit! What the shit? Shit! Oh, that was a double line, by the way. A rock drags Rosita to the ground. You shot Lucille! She got in the way. Negan calms down and sees the bullet casing. He picks it up. What is this? What is this? Again, double line. Is this little bad boy made from scratch? You showed some real ingenuity here. Alright, move that knife up right on that girl's face. Lucille's never gonna look the same. So why should yours? Unless you tell me who made this. Rosita confidently says, it was me. You see? Now I just think you're lying. One more time. And Rosita pushes on the knife, cutting her own face, and says one more time, it was me. Fuck yeah, Rosita's amazing. Love Rosita. She's got a scar now. And double line. Oh, you are such a badass. Fine. Have it your way. Alright. Kill somebody. Arat hesitates only for the moment it takes her to think of somebody. Rosita's screaming, "No, it was me!" Triple line. And Arat whips around and shoots Olivia in the head. What? Oh my god. I did not see that coming. This is so interesting to me. For Arat to go straight for Olivia, I get the feeling that as a savior, you are well aware that at any one time, Negan might make a request of you to just kill somebody. As soon as the saviors are exposed to a new group of people, I could imagine that each and every one of them picks like, yeah, if I was asked to kill somebody, I would kill them. In episode 4, Arat is the one to discover that the guns are missing, and she drags Olivia to Negan. But she gets scolded by Negan for doing that without cause. I think right there is the moment that she picked Olivia. If any time Negan asked her to kill somebody, she was going for her. On a completely separate note, aren't we all lucky that Olivia wasn't holding the baby that she had sworn to protect? Where is the baby in this circumstance? Carl should have been holding the baby. Everyone's reactions are great. I think Eugene gives one of the best performances, because now he feels the total guilt of the situation. Just then, Rick and Aaron show up. We had an agreement! Rick! Look everybody, it's Rick! You people are making me lose my voice doing all this yelling. I got the feeling that this is an improv from Jeffrey D. Morgan. You usually wouldn't write into a script that a character would lose their voice mid-speech, and he has been yelling a lot. One difference between this scene in the comics versus the show is that he's not playing pool with Spencer when he kills him. He's going on a walk with him, just the two of them. So all of his lines are a little more quiet. But here, with everyone there, he was yelling, and it's great to see that they used this ad-lib from him. Rick. How about a thank you? I know we started this relationship beating the holy shit out of your friends, and because of that we're never gonna sit around braiding each other's hair or sharing our deepest, darkest secrets. But how about a little credit? In the books, Negan says specifically, I know we're never going to share Sunday dinner together, and it's interesting that they cut that, seeing as how in the season premiere, Negan references Rick's fantasy Sunday dinner. I feel like this would have been even more powerful to have him say Sunday dinner here. So again, it's just something that they've cut from the comics that doesn't make any sense to me. I just bent over backwards to show you how reasonable I am. Your kid? He hid in one of my trucks and machine gunned a bunch of my men down. 2, Negan. 2. And I brought him home. Rick turns. And I fed him spaghetti. Another one of your people. He wanted me to kill you and put him in charge. No, Negan, that's not what Spencer said. Hell, that's not what you said. I took him out for you. Another one? She shot Lucille trying to kill me. So I gave you one less mouth to feed. And by looking at her, that mouth did some major damage. Cold-hearted motherfucker. He liked Olivia. Now, personally, I wouldn't have picked her to be the one to go, but Arat didn't trust her. Rick says, your shit's waiting for you at the gate. Just go. Sure thing, Rick. Right after I find the guy or gal that made this bullet. Arat? And Arat whips her gun at Eric, Aaron's boyfriend. But then Tara interrupts and says, it was me! I think this little moment shows us 2 things. 1, Eric is totally expendable and his death will definitely happen in order to affect Aaron. And 2, Tara, once again this episode, is the type of person to sacrifice herself. But then, Eugene speaks up. No, it wasn't. Negan walks over to him. It was me. It was me. It was only me. It required 1 spent casing, 1 fertile turtle, 1 lube powder, 1 funnel forward powder, 1... Shut up. I believe you. They try to make this moment really tense. Negan pauses and walks forward and holds Lucille up to his face. Lucille, give me strength. And we feel like, oh, maybe he's just gonna kill Eugene. But anyone who knows Negan very well knows that he would never do something so stupid. I will be relieving you of your bullet maker, Rick. They start to take Eugene away and Rosita's screaming after him. And then we get this shot of Rick, heartbroken. And I don't think it has anything to do with Spencer and Olivia. I think that the pain that he's feeling is seeing Rosita so sad and seeing Eugene taken away. We got a great overhead shot showing how much blood Spencer has lost. Then we see him turn over, zombified. And Rick lets out his frustration and stabs him in the head. We didn't see Spencer turn in the comics. I think for an actor who's played such a shitty role, this is the best possible death you could ever want. Being killed by Negan, turning into a zombie, and then being killed by Rick. Later that night, we see Rick in the cell that Morgan has built. His hatchet is on the ground, along with the note that they found on the houseboat. Congrats on winning, but you lose. And this note really kind of encompasses how Rick is feeling. Even though he had a good day of getting supplies for Negan, he came back, and 2 of his people are dead, and he's lost a 3rd. I'm not entirely sure why he's in the cell. What made him leave Carl and his baby to go sit on his knees in a cell, take his hatchet and the note out, and just stare at it until Michonne shows up? It sounds like something you put in a movie without thinking how the character actually got there. When Michonne does show up, she says, "Carl told me you were in here." Rick walks up to her and he doesn't say anything. He just seems to be happy to see that she's alive. When he got back, Carl must have told him that Michonne just left. So on top of all these deaths, Rick is in here thinking that Michonne's just gone. And now he just hugs her. This is exactly the Rick and Michonne stuff I love. Michonne says, "I found what I was looking for. We are outnumbered, it's not even close. That doesn't change the way that I feel, because it doesn't change the way that things are. We're still alive, Rick. The 2 of us." Oh, so nothing changed for Michonne. She still wants to fight. So she spent all this time learning that Negan has a bunch of guys, which is something that Rick and the gang already knew, in order to change, and she didn't change. Rick has changed now. He wants to fight now. So we've just been double wasting our time with Michonne. We're still standing. How do we make that mean something? We're the ones who get things done. You said that. We're the ones who live. That's why we have to fight. Not for us. For all of us. But only if we do this. Rick's like, "Yeah, I know that now. I know that now." Double line. And they kiss. So this is an adaptation of a conversation that Andrea and Rick have, because obviously, for those of you who don't know, Michonne and Rick are in a relationship in the comics, Andrea and Rick are in a relationship in the comics, and they have a similar moment, but here in the show, Michonne ends with, "We're the ones who live," where in the comics, Andrea says, and it's one of my favorite comic book double lines ever, "We don't die." It's something that the both of them start to say kind of over and over. It's a mantra. It pushes them through the hard times. And if this scene is any indication, they rewrote that line to be, "We're the ones who live." And not only is that not as powerful, she didn't even do a double line. I don't know. It feels good to get them back together and that they both know that they're supposed to fight, but I don't feel like either of these stories have earned it. But if there is one point that is to be made, is that they think that they need to do it together. That's what Gabriel was saying to Rosita at the beginning of the episode, and that's what Michonne is saying to Rick right now. And they're right. This entire season, every one of the characters has been trying to solve the Negan problem by themselves. And obviously that is the wrong way to go about it. And for the second half of the season, we can all anticipate them getting together and them getting it done. Back at the hilltop, it's a new day and Maggie is at Glenn's grave once again. She climbs up onto the watchtower and looks out and she sees something. And it makes her happy. In this moment I thought, oh my god, it's gonna be Daryl. It's gonna be him and Jesus coming back and she's gonna have this moment with Daryl where she doesn't blame him for Glenn's death and he gets that resolution as a character. But no, it's Rick, Carl, Michonne, Rosita, and Tara. As soon as this happened, I was like, oh my god, the whole lineup is back together. They were together in the premiere, they got separated, and now they are back. But Tara's there, and Aaron's not. I wonder why Aaron's not there. Rick hugs Maggie. He says, "You okay?" "I'm okay." I won't double line that. "You were right from the start." This is obviously a reference to in the premiere, after Negan leaves, Maggie says, "We gotta get ready to fight." I didn't listen and I couldn't. I can now. From behind one of the trailers, Daryl and Jesus come out. So Daryl was already there? So Maggie and Daryl had their reunion and we missed it? Oh, God. I am not complaining that we get this moment for Rick, but I think for Daryl, the more important moment is what Maggie thinks of him. Obviously, she's fine, but I think it's important for him to see that for the first time and for the audience to see that for the first time, and we will never get that. I'm actually mad about that. On Talking Dead, something Norman Reedus says Daryl thinks all the time now is, man, I just hope Maggie can forgive me. And to miss out on that resolution is, pathetically stupid. But we still get Rick's reaction, which is heavy. He goes up to Daryl and he's just looking at him, and Daryl gives him a teary-eyed nod, and they hug. It means so much to both of them. In episode 4, they weren't able to communicate, and they've been being tortured in different ways separately. To finally be able to hug, however kind of gushy it sounds, it just really meant a lot. to them, to the audience, it was a very powerful moment that totally works. Rosita and Sasha look at each other, and for a moment it's tense, but Sasha sees the scar and Rosita smiles at her. It's a moment of change for Rosita. At the beginning of the episode, Gabriel asked her what about Sasha, and she had nothing to say, telling us she would have rathered Sasha die instead of Abraham and Glenn. But now she feels like she's on even ground with her. She's grown, and it's fantastic. I also love that the scar on Rosita's face resembles a tear. I think every time the audience sees her, they will be reminded of the pain she feels that fuels her. It's great. Carl and Enid have a little bit of a moment. Interestingly enough, Carl is now covering his eye again. In the comics, after Negan makes him take the bandage off, Carl doesn't actually keep covering it. In the books, I took it as a sign that Carl was being affected by Negan. Here, I take it as a sign that none of that shit worked on Carl. And that's very interesting. There's a great hug between Michonne and Daryl. Just before Daryl hands Rick the Colt Python, his revolver. Rick takes it and he is Rick Grimes again. We get a bunch of honestly super cheesy close-ups of everybody, followed by a huge wide shot of all of them walking in tandem up to the Barrington house. Up until this point, I didn't think this scene was too sappy. I thought it was totally necessary. But this was definitely a little too cheesy pie. I'll give it to him that maybe this is what we needed. After such a devastating season premiere, after which all of these characters separated, it is super important to give us this reunion. And that's what they did. I didn't expect it in this episode, but to get them all back together to start a war gets me fucking pumped. Now that is your traditional end to the episode, but after the credits we get one more scene. It's nighttime at Alexandria. Gabriel, being one of the few people left to defend, is on the wall. We see someone on the outside of the wall checking things out with a pair of binoculars. Then we see their feet land, having just jumped over the Alexandria wall. The same shoes we saw after the boathouse scene with Rick and Aaron. They must have followed them back. The reason I think Aaron didn't go to the hilltop with everybody else is because someone who this person would recognize needs to be back at Alexandria, and the only two people would be Rick and Aaron. Assuming we've never met this person before, so let's talk a little bit about it. Who could this person be? Well, I've combed through every pair of shoes that have ever been in this show. I'm pretty sure these shoes have been made unrecognizable. One quick note is that in the comics, this is incredibly similar to how Jesus was actually first introduced. The first time we see him, he is dressed very similarly, with binoculars. He doesn't sneak into Alexandria, but the introduction is very similar, leading me to think that this person isn't actually a bad guy. The survivors have enough going on with the saviors that I would have to imagine they're not introducing a new threat. I thought it could have been Sydney, the Oceanside girl. Possibly she followed Tara back to Alexandria. These aren't the shoes she was wearing, and Tara is at the hilltop, so there's nobody there that she would recognize. And this person followed Rick and Aaron, not Tara. We saw that, so it's probably not her. In episode 5, when Rick is telling Michonne where he is heading, he says he's going to head north. Tara obviously came from the ocean, so the Oceanside people would be coming from the east, not running into Rick and Aaron north of Alexandria. So it's definitely not anybody from Oceanside. I thought maybe it's Carol. I thought it could have been one of the saviors, seeing as how Negan had left. They took that opportunity maybe to go try to find Alexandria, but that's not it either. It's more likely that it's somebody we've never met. My brain full of comic book information doesn't have any characters that could fill this role, so maybe they're introducing something totally original to the show. Maybe I'm an idiot and I'm missing something entirely. Some people think it's Morales from season 1. Well, I absolutely think that's ridiculous. If it is him, cool, but why would he have also made the journey from Georgia to Washington and then north of Washington to run into Rick and Aaron near the boat? It doesn't make sense. And that's good. If I think of anything else, I could make a whole video about it. But right now, I just don't know. Alright everybody, that was the mid-season finale of The Walking Dead. I thought a lot of the aspects of it were great, especially the Negan, Spencer, Rosita, Olivia, Eugene scene, but unfortunately I think that the half-season arcs for Carol, Daryl, and Michonne were pretty disappointing. They didn't go anywhere that truly excited me. I think Daryl is closer to being an exception because at least he's changing. Pretty soon I'll be making a comprehensive review, breaking down the trailer for the next half season. I'd like to thank all of you who are watching now and who have ever watched any of my videos. I started this channel in October in preparation for this season because I really wanted to talk about it, and I didn't expect it to take off. Trying to get a huge recap video out every week was a challenge, and unfortunately I wasn't able to do it. But thank you all for being patient and sticking around. I hope you guys stick with me, and please, everybody go out and tell your friends about the dude. Share my videos, comment comment down in the comments section, like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and watch it again. That's all for me. This has been The Dude. See ya.